With me right now is Tim Casey, who is self-described as the one and only principal at Rebel Held Tech LLC. And so I'm happy to have Tim here to talk with us about a number of things, beginning with an introduction to who he is and why he does what he does. Tim, how are you? And why don't you talk a little bit about who you are?
My name is Tim Casey. I've been in the computer network and enterprise support arena for over 20 years. And in the last couple of years, I've specialized in some security at some operations centers. After a couple layoffs, I decided I was going to start my own company, make my own way, try to get through it in this bad economy. So far, it's not been too bad.
So your company, Rebel Held Tech, is a security company, a technology security company. Is that right?
Well, I consider it a consulting company. We provide consulting advice to companies around the world on how to best run their network. I also offer structured analysis. So in your strategic planning departments, there's some companies, like it was started by, I think, Shell Oil. They had a strategic futurist working there. I can't remember the gentleman's name. It's one of my classes at Henley Putnam University. A company that does really well spends time thinking about new options, and I can help with that as well.
When I think about all of the foreign policy discussed in the last debate between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, I didn't hear a lot about some of the real weaknesses we have in our own country's security network. Do you feel like I do, that there's either not enough security or maybe more that we know that I'm glad that I don't know about?
As you know, Congress is trying to pass a cybersecurity bill, and Barack Obama is going to try to, I think he's trying to put together an executive order. I don't know how he's going to do it, mandating certain protections be put in place by companies that work on or operate critical infrastructure. But it's an interesting question, especially with Atlas Shrugged 2 coming out. You know, who really owns that infrastructure? Is it privately held? If so, what jurisdiction does the government have over that equipment? In the energy department, I believe it's FERC that regulates the critical infrastructure, and they're already starting to move in that direction. And don't get me wrong, I think that there's been several studies done that basically shows that our critical infrastructure is wide open. This stuff, pipelines, people leaving default passwords on there, and so it is a problem. But I don't know if the government's going to try to regulate it.
Well, that's why I was asking, because it seems like as technology continues to march forward, our dependence on technology is getting more and more every day. And so with so much in the balance, it seems like security becomes more and more important. But technology moves so fast that even security systems that we might have in place today can be obsolete literally tomorrow. I mean, you can literally have a system that overnight changes, or a way into a back door that exists, all of these different issues. And so when I listen to people talking about foreign policy, I just wonder how much we're factoring in our lack of critical security here in America. I mean, there's a lot of systems that are just wide open right now, like you're saying. And does your company address some of those issues? And if so, are your services available to government agencies, or are you only for the private sector?
Well, I made a conscious decision to stay away from government contracts, mainly because there are so many other players in that market who have it wrapped up. Believe it or not, margins aren't that good. The government does do a pretty good job of making sure those rates are low for the companies that do have them. But I'd like to focus on companies' internal infrastructure. So multinationals, they'll have sites around the world or around the United States, law firms, places like that.
Give me an example of somebody that would use your services. Give me, is it small business? Is it is it a big corporate giant? I mean, who uses your services, and why would someone listening to us be interested in what you do outside of it's an interesting conversation about security?
Companies should always be concerned about their brand, and some of the hacks that we see about in the news are really simple fixes, believe it or not. Companies need to think about security from top to bottom, and it starts with support from the CEO. I mean, there's got to be backing there. Sometimes companies won't make the investment in the security that they really should. Part of being one of those consultants that challenges their customers to think and do the right thing. I'll be looking, after large multinationals. I don't think so much small businesses. I mean, if a small business has an interesting play, maybe a small site, I wouldn't turn them away from a conversation. I always like to have a conversation with people, and my business is to help them.
Well, give me an example of a critical situation where your services would come into play ahead of time to stop something bad happening?
Well, it's also important to know that security is not 100% foolproof. It never is. And if anyone tells you something's 100% secure, they're either lying or they don't know what they're talking about. So what I would do is go into a company, look at their security posture, see if there's any security policies in place, and their IT department, how do they handle incidents, for example, setting up an incident management plan. So a company can decide up front what they want to do if they are attacked. Some of the things that we hear about is these spear phishing attempts. They convince executives to click on a link, and all of a sudden, they might have a database held in ransom. What they can do, they turn on encryption, and then they can't have access to their data, and it's kind of like extortion. So you want to have your policy set in place ahead of time on how to deal with that.
Do you see as what you do when you work with companies more as a partnership for the long term, or do you see it as you come in, you fix it, and that's it?
I could do both. I could support a company in the long run, but it's the initial setup that I think would be the most brunt of the initial work.
Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, I don't know if you saw this the other day, he referred to the possibility of a cyber Pearl Harbor. It seems like all around us, the warning flags are up that the next big issue that we would face would not be Japanese fighters going over Pearl Harbor. It would be an attack that would be from the outside, but it would happen on the inside, if you follow my meaning. It seems to me that your industry is one that more and more people would want to know about, or they'd want to find out ways to get involved in. It sounds like what you do is going to have to be a part of every business's strategies long term. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong. Since I'm just starting out, the company's only 2 months old, what I need to look for are partners. I'll go into a company may have arrangements with existing vendors, in which case, you'd work with those vendors. I don't see any solutions being better than others. The bottom line is, do they have a policy set up? Do they follow their policy? Does it meet industry standards? So, yeah, I probably will be partnering with some companies as the time goes on, and I meet with people who own these companies. I don't consider it as like a new Cisco, but just a consultant who will work smartly with the company on their internal network.
Is there a way that people can participate in the growth of your company through a link on your website?
I'm exploring venture capitalists and angel investors, and those these angel investors and the venture capitalists. I'm exploring that avenue with another vendor. It's tough to get started.
This is something that could have applications not just now, but for the future, and you will need to grow to meet the needs and the challenges of the different security scenarios that could come around the corner. I'm not baffled is the word. It amazes me. I can't even comprehend all the things you'll need to stay on top of. Do you ever wake up in the morning and go, maybe I should do another line of work?
No, that stuff, I like it. I get into it. The hard part right now is finding the customers and interacting with them.
If you can, give me a kind of a thumbnail sketch of the who would be a potential customer for you, someone that would meet the criteria or fit the demographic model of who would be your customer. Who would they be?
My market is multinational companies. They don't have to be U.S. companies. I'm really excited about seeing the world. That's one of the things that I want to do. If you have a computer network, let's say 3 sites or more that you connect together, there's got to be an internet connection on one of those sites, and a firewall. You think about putting in IDS or email security. Your typical guy is my customer is probably not another small business with which is one owner. It's really established companies, and there's a lot of those. And as you know, the world is growing up. Investment in foreign companies, the growth in the foreign companies is where the growth is.
Should people look at what Panetta says, cyber Pearl Harbor? Is that fear-mongering, or should people be concerned?
Well, I suppose it's possible if there was a blitz, if a real war started, it would make getting to your bank site on the internet difficult. I'm glad you did mention the Panetta speech, because if people go to that, just Google it, and they had to release classified information, or they declassified the content of that speech, so you can get an idea of what kind of things the government does look at. The internet is flexible. The other problems are it's hard to attribute who these attackers really are. I mean, the internet is truly a global place where you can be anonymous. And if you're into stealing sites or owning sites, there's almost no way of knowing who these people really are unless you've got people working inside some of these groups like Anonymous and LulzSec.
That's outside the purview of really anybody but, I mean, maybe some super secret spy organizations, because that's why Anonymous, for example, can do what they do, because they're not infiltrated. So that means that you have got to be sort of a shield to guard against, because you're not going to be able to infiltrate. In other words, you can't be in the basement of every hacker around the world.
Right.
So you have to set up systems that protect businesses that assume anonymous folks trying to take you down. And so your job is to be that shield, correct?
Right. One of the things that companies can do, and a service I can offer, is log evaluations. You know, these attacks happen and people don't even know it, and the evidence is right there in their logs. You know, you can review that information and kind of get an idea of who's looking at your site. That's an area we want to focus on too.
Your anonymity is almost impossible because you have a business and you want people to use your services. So do potential security threats see companies like yours and think, I'm going to go after them? Are they like counter, hacking, is that a problem that you ever worry about?
Well, companies need to be careful if they engage in that sort of thing. I don't think it's entirely legal.
Well, no, what I'm assuming is it wouldn't be legal. I'm saying, right. If there do you believe that some of the security threats out there, instead of going after the clients of yours, might go after you, bring your network down? It seems like spy versus spy.
If people go to my website, I've got a Facebook page. There was a post I put on there. I'll give credit to the author. He was a Washington Post reporter. Krebs, I think. He did really good analysis where he showed all the attack vectors that people use to attack just a regular computer. I mean, your home users. A lot of people say, you run into, I'm in this, been in the IT security business, and they say, oh, no one's going to go after me. Well, your computer sitting there connected to the internet 24/7 they want that because they use that to launch other attacks. But as far as, I'm not too worried. I don't have an extensive network myself here in the company.
What about people that would say, hey, I've got AVG, I've got Zone Alarm, I have Malware Bytes, or any of these programs. We're cool. We don't need anything else. How would you respond to someone like that?
Well, layered security is the way to go.
You're not just talking about the PCs on the desktops in the offices. You're talking about the servers. You're talking about the entire infrastructure.
Right. The infrastructure that runs a company from the point of access, which would be their internet connection, to their private lease lines internally, which connects to their site offices. There's a lot of things you can do to sniff the network and figure out what's going on.
What is the most extreme, crazy doom and gloom scenario that people need to, number one, be concerned about with respect to their security and their networks? And number two, what can you do to help them with that problem? Probably
one of the most embarrassing things that can happen is an attacker can get into your email, your company email, and basically view what's going on there and then publish it to hurt your company. There's been sites that have been attacked and companies that didn't necessarily agree with the ideology of the attackers, and they'll go after them. And so releasing information inside, extortion. A large company generally probably already has some sort of backups. I mean, you could take, if a company has two sites, redundant sites, if you were to take both of those offline and be totally dark, that's a pretty big thing to think about as well.
And these are things which your company is geared to help people protect against.
Protect against and plan for ahead of time. It's always easier to build or bake the security in ahead of time than worry about it afterwards.
All right. Well, Tim Casey, you are the head honcho, the principal at Rebel Held Tech, and your website is rebelheld.com. I would think I'd be making a mistake by not asking you to talk about the name Rebel Held. Right. Rebel Held, what's that about? What does that mean?
Sitting in the operations centers I've worked at, we watch how the Middle East, some people will say unraveling, but you should think about this positively as people rising up against very dictatorial governments and basically standing up against the state police forces. insisting on some sort of representation. I don't know if they've got it, and I don't know if they'll like the type of representation they'll eventually get, but it's just fascinating to me that these people will risk their lives. I mean, these regimes like in Syria where they routinely torture people stand up to that. I think if these people can do that, then I can start a business.
What is the statistical likelihood that a business owner listening right now is going to have to deal with a cybersecurity issue that your company could have helped prevent in the first place?
Statistically, if you want a number, if we're talking about really large corporations,
no, I'm talking about anybody that owns, between 5 and 10 employees. Mm-hmm. They got a couple, servers. They got, offices on both coasts. Doesn't have to be a big business. Someone listening right now, statistically, what are the odds they're going to have to deal with some of this stuff?
Well, I think the odds are that they need to be worried that they're already compromised.
Wow. That's tough right there. In other words, we're beyond it could happen one day. You think that it most likely has already happened.
You throw a computer server on the internet, assuming you don't have firewall on it, these things get, there's probes out there scanning the network all the time, looking for vulnerabilities.
That's powerful stuff. Tim, I appreciate you being here. And if anybody wants to know more information about Rebel Held and what you do, your website is rebelheld.com. And if someone listening wants to become one of your customers, you can do that. If they want to find out how to donate or help your cause, they can do that. Or just find out more about you, they can do that at rebelheld.com. Tim, anything you'd like to add before we close?
Just thank you, Don, for this opportunity.
Thank you for the time. It's been very enlightening. Technology moves so quickly. I still don't always know what people do, but I know a little bit. I put it this way. I know enough now to know that if I have a company that has more than one server at GoDaddy, I'm going to call you for some security help. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Yeah, thanks, Don.